Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Welcome to another podcast episode of Merkaba Chakras. I'm your host, Von Galt, and today we discuss the use of scalar light, or what Nikola Tesla called radiant energy from the sun, as a form of distant energy healing. Now, Nikola Tesla was the first known inventor of scalar light with the use of the Colorado Springs Tower and the Wardenclyffe Tower, which beamed out free energy. Unfortunately, the banking crisis at the time ceased further funding to complete Nikola's project. And I love how we are ever growing new ways to tap into the unconditionally loving Christ consciousness of the abundant universe. So we're going to learn more about Scalar Light with inventor Tom Palatino. So with that, Tom, welcome to Merkaba Chakras.
A pleasure, Von Galt. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome. This is a fun one because I love Nikola Tesla's work. I love all the innovators, and there's so many different ways in which you can tap into these higher frequencies and energies. And you picked up a very unique technology. So what got you into this work in the first place? Let's go from there before we talk about what Scalar Light is.
Yeah, scalar energy. It's what Tesla deemed as radiant energy. What did Tesla discover? He discovered chi, or a prana, or 0 point energy. I always say that Nikola Tesla began his career with AC electricity, but later in his life, he realized that there's another energy, which is scalar energy, or again, he called it radiant energy. And to boil that down, that's the energy, that's the light that empowers our chakras. So scalar energy is the energy behind our 7 chakras. And that's the animating force of our 7 chakras. And I've always said that eventually the medical community will, once they realize that we do have chakras, then they will be forced to admit that the chakras are powered by scalar energy. You know, that it's a marriage, if you will.
Yeah.
And they're traveling partners. If you have chakras, you have scalar energy. Okay. And that's going to be made apparent in the future, hopefully in the near term future. So,
right.
In a nutshell, I'm working with scalar energy. I'm not working with electricity. Scalar energy is the animating force of our 7 chakras, our 7 meridians.
Now, quick question. So what got you into scalar energy? Did you like bump into it during reading a book? Did you just had a meditation and all of a sudden, whoosh, I got to look into this?
It was God's design. God wanted me to work with this. It is the Christ consciousness. What do I mean by that? It's a divine energy. If electricity is a movement of electrons, that's fine. This has nothing to do with a movement of electrons. This is not a stream of electrons. This is the Christ consciousness of the universe. It's the information system of the universe. It's profound. It's a divine energy. And God, the Holy Spirit, inspired me to take up this research. And I
So what were you doing? What were you doing when the inspiration came through? Do you remember that experience?
I was a youngster. I was still an adolescent, and I was reading about Tesla, and I was asking God for the wisdom to, in some way, duplicate Tesla's work. I always wanted to be able to prove that Tesla was working with another type of energy. Well, here I am now at age 61, and I'm on the verge of proving that Tesla was right, that Tesla had discovered the Christ consciousness. He called it radiant energy. I call it scalar energy, call it what you will. And this technology, it's unlike anything. This technology offers mankind so many gifts, so many benefits. It's going to be, as I've said, a sea change in the world with the advent of scalar energy.
Okay. So you came into your work of scalar energy as a teenager when you were reading materials from Tesla and wanting to understand what that energy he was talking about. And then you you got that divine inspiration of, okay, this is how, so is this how you create this? Is how you make the technology? I mean, was it through synchronicity that you learned how to create the technology?
In part synchronicity. Later in my life, in my 30s, then I met a family by the name of the Hieronymus family. Hieronymus. I never met the inventor, but I met his wife. And Hieronymus was really the follow-up, the if you will, the second generation of scalar energy researchers in this country. So Tesla, as far as I'm concerned, discovered and mastered scalar energy. And then Hieronymus was the second generation. And Hieronymus created instruments. And I had the good fortune to be able to use the Hieronymus instruments. I did not have to start from scratch, so to speak.
Okay.
And
Hieronymus, did he get the information stumbled on his own, or was he also researching Tesla's work and then came across it?
It's hard to say because they were essentially contemporaries. So I really don't think he had a direct interface with Nikola Tesla. But I will say this about both men, and this rings true to form. When you're working with the energy of God, you have to be pure, you have to be holy, your intentions have to be good. And this is why God gave Tesla the knowledge, and this is why God gave this other American inventor, Hieronymus, the knowledge. God is not going to give a nefarious person or some nefarious organization the blueprints, if you will, to the Christ consciousness. It's just not going to happen. God is supreme, and he's not going to lower himself to an evil-minded person or an evil-minded organization. So what does that say about Tesla and Hieronymus? They are good men. They are rather astute scientists, and they carried through. They wanted to honor God, and they wanted to help people. This is the key. With this incredible technology, you have to want to help people. You cannot be selfish. There cannot be, the motivation cannot be yourself or monetary gain. And I'm trying to be true to form, and I want to help people, and I want to introduce this technology for the betterment of mankind.
Okay. So you came across the wife of Hieronymus. She showed you the work that her husband was working on, and then because you already were kind of in the space of Tesla's work and wanting to know more about it.
Right.
And so then you started working with that information, and that's how you came up with the technology yourself.
That's right.
And when you first started using your own technology in Scalar Light, what was the first experience or experiment like?
The inventor's wife, her name was Sarah Hieronymus, and she taught me how to use these instruments that her husband developed. And immediately I could take these instruments and work by way of a photograph. Now, I have to make this very clear. There are no in-person sessions. Okay? For demonstration, people email me a photograph. I would take a photograph of a person. This is my photograph, and place the photograph inside the instrument. So I work remotely, if you will, and I only work by way of a photograph. Now, with that in mind, I'm able to eradicate, break down, destroy microbes, germs. I do all of this by way of a photograph. So back, it was in 1994, I started working with this instrument. And lo and behold, I could easily break down, destroy, disassemble, eradicate viruses, bacteria, and fungi. Frankly, I was thunderstruck. I thought this was incredible. And to this day, I can't understand why other people really never grasped what Tesla was trying to do and grasped what Hieronymus was trying to do. All you have to do is investigate. But I'm the investigator right now. I'm the modern day investigator. Right. So in practice, back in 1994, I was able to break down, to eradicate microbes, pathogens. And today I continue in that vein. And I still say this is going to be the game changer in so many ways. And one of the ways is by way of being able to eradicate pathogenic infection.
Right. So in order for people to understand this, so let's break it down for simplistic terms. First, Scalar Light as you say, is the chi or prana or life force, the Christ consciousness energy of the universe
Yes.
that fills the vortexes of each of the different chakras within our energy body. Okay.
Yes.
So the chakras we know basically are these mini vortexes that go down the line of our body. It's the
Yes.
energy field. And the fuel that powers those little mini vortexes, you're saying is scalar light or
Yes.
Christ consciousness energy, which Christ is just another word,
Yes.
not to be confused with Jesus Christ. Christ is another word in Buddhism for crystalline, which is basically a higher dimensional universal consciousness. It's another word for light. That's all it is light consciousness. So, and so that's what scalar light is. It's just basically like chi or prana, universal source that's fueling these different chakras. And we know in Eastern energy medicine, in a lot of different modalities, that people are energy, and as energy, that is what creates the form or the avatars in which we are looking at and talking through, and creates the form and reality in which we are engaging with as well. And the thing that I found very interesting also is that a lot of people talk energy healing, a lot of people talk about Christ consciousness and this universal energy force. But then when a epidemic comes across, it goes out the window. It's not like they really believe their work. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So last year, when the pandemic started to come out in full force worldwide in about spring of 2020, you have these influencers who are really into these spiritual concepts, et cetera, who have like 1 million or so people following them. All of a sudden, change shift from consciousness, energy healing, and all these wonderful scientific terms that we already know in metaphysics to doomsday Armageddon. So it's like, what happened? You built your whole career and all of a sudden you throw it out the window. You really don't believe this.
Yeah.
And this the same thing goes with energy healing, because now we're going through the phase of the pandemic worldwide. And I believe it's always been an endemic, but that's a different conversation. But anyways, you have this pandemic going on worldwide, and you have these energy healers who have been doing this stuff, but then all of a sudden it's like some of them throw that out the window, and they believe the form within the matrix as being more real than what they have been studying and saying they know. So, what is your opinion about the current COVID-19 coronavirus with regards to scalar light?
Sure. Sure. I'm not bashful to say anything.
Yeah, it's on your
COVID-19.
website too. So,
Yeah. COVID-19 is a man-made virus. It's a man-made virus. And it's nefarious, it's evil. Now, I am able, with a photograph of a person, to detect the COVID-19 virus by way of a person's photograph. And acting through that photograph, I'm able to release the molecular bonds or negate the molecular bonds, call it disassemble, call it destroy the molecular bonds, call it what you will. And the reason I can prove that is with my instrument, I not only can work with a photograph, but I can monitor a photograph.
mhm.
Now, this is the unique science that I have developed with Hieronymus and Tesla. There's nothing like scalar energy in the electromagnetic dimension.
Mhm.
And if you will, this scalar energy dimension really begs a new definition of science, a new definition of terms and nomenclatures. So I go on record by saying scalar energy instruments, it's not electricity. We can observe different types of patterns, different types of signatures of the COVID-19 virus. And working through a photograph, we can disassemble, we can eradicate those signals on a photograph. So
So,
this is a
so
new branch of physics.
okay, okay. So the photo of somebody, because obviously everything within creation is just basically form that we have created within our consciousness. The form the photos of someone is unique. So there's only one of that photo in the
Yes.
world. And so in how does your technology pick up let's say the COVID virus or any kind of illness in the person in that photo? How does it do that? Can you simplify
Sure,
that for people?
sure. Let's use this analogy. Some people have a cell phone, and that cell phone will have a facial recognition. You can actually imprint your facial recognition into a cell phone. That cell phone recognizes you as an individual by facial biometrics. Now, scalar energy recognizes anything in a photograph. So if I took a photograph of myself, scalar energy would recognize me in that photograph. It would, in specific, it would recognize my scalar energy force field.
So your energy signature.
Yes, my energy signature, exactly.
Right.
Everything we're doing is non-physical. So what am I
Yes.
saying? Yeah, thank you. Scalar energy is a non-physical dimension. It's not electricity. It's not magnetism. My photograph carries a scalar energy fingerprint or a scalar energy signature, which is distinct from an electromagnetic signature. Yes.
So actually, let's do this exercise. So I sent you a picture of myself and my family, and if you can, I'm going to put it up on the screen here. Here. Okay.
Yes.
So here's the picture I sent you. So
Yes.
when a client sends you a picture for the subscription, what do you do with the picture? Can you explain that to people?
Sure. So I actually print out the photograph. Why? Because a photograph is your energetic copy. It's your energetic fingerprint, your energetic blueprint. Now, if you look at this photograph, and again, I only work with photographs. I would actually print out and place that photograph inside a scalar energy instrument. Now, everything in that photograph would be treated with scalar energy. The people, the Christmas tree in the background, the dining set, everything in that photograph would be treated with scalar energy. Why? Keep in mind, scalar energy, scalar light is sunlight. So the analogy that I use is, if I place your photograph inside a scalar energy instrument, it's as if I'm placing your photograph in the sunlight, or outside, in which it could be bathed in sunlight or starlight. So if I place your photograph outside and sunlight will suffuse that entire photograph, then I can do the same thing with my instrument. Scalar energy is sunlight. So that's the peculiar characteristics of scalar energy. It floods an environment, okay? Meaning it's just not in one place, it's omnipresent.
So what happens to the instruments?
The instruments, they're rather peculiar because they have no moving parts. What's so incredible about the instruments? They don't create the energy, they simply harness the energy. The sun and the stars create the energy. My instrument simply captures sunlight and starlight. There are no moving parts because I don't have to create. There is no motion in my instrument because I do not create the energy. I simply tap into sunlight and starlight.
Okay. So what do you do with the picture? So when you put the picture I gave you into your technology, what did it pick up? Did it pick up any kind of pathogens or?
And I leave that up to God, because it is God's energy, and I do not diagnose, I do not interpret. I let the instrument, I let the energy do that. And this is the beauty of what I'm doing. It's the energy that is self-directed. It's the energy that has a mind of its own. It's a divine mind. Now, you put all of that in together. When I place your photograph inside the instrument, I let God do the healing. It's not me. It's a divine energy. It's a divine healing.
I definitely want to distinguish that for people out there who's going, well, who does the healing? Is it the facilitator, or is it the is it source, or is it the person themselves? And anyone who tells you that they're the ones doing it, what do you say to that?
No, how could you? Only God can do this. This is divine. The energy, I firmly believe that scalar energy is a divine energy. Why do I say that? it does not weaken. It does not experience entropy. It's
Mhm.
always present. So in order for something to be always present and never to die off and never to fade, if you will, it has
Mhm.
to come from a divine eternal source. And that's what scalar energy is. It's a divine eternal energy. Well, I can guarantee you I'm not divine and I'm not eternal.
Mhm.
So the energy is from God. God is the healer, and it's not me. I agree with you. If you're a healer, you really have to give credence. You have to acknowledge God. God is the healer. You are not the healer.
Right. We are all just fractal aspects of source consciousness playing
Yes.
different roles for the experience of the self
Yes.
and of the whole. We're just going for the ride.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when somebody is doing any kind of energy healing, whether they're using Scalar Light technology or they're using any kind of technology or any kind of modality, all they're doing is they're a conduit. They're just facilitating. They're just
Yes.
setting up the process and then making that connection for you. This is facilitating, making the connection. But then the client does the connection themselves, and then source comes
Yes.
through and does what is
Yes.
supposed to do.
Yes.
Okay, but that's
And
really good to clarify for people because
yes. And the Western model, Western medicine doesn't necessarily think along those lines. The model really doesn't really give credence to the notion of a God or of a divine healing. And I think that's one of the shortcomings with many disciplines, with many approaches to healing.
right. Well, so now we're talking about healing, and so here's the thing. There is a ongoing discussion that's been going on for a long time about the effectiveness of various vaccines for different viruses and illnesses. And it has all been medically proven that the viruses continue to mutate over and over. That's all they do. That's their job. Is they just mutate to try to survive. And so they're getting so much, they're mutating so much faster, so much quicker, that all we're doing is playing catch up. And oftentimes, what many medical researchers are finding is that some of the and at some of the vaccines and the medicine that we're creating are not addressing the issue at all because it's already mutated. It's already light years above our current understanding of how to address it. So as these different vaccines and as these different medicine lose their effectiveness with various viruses, how can we use this technology to heal people?
Okay. I'm going to just quickly address some scientific facts. Coronaviruses have been known to mutate. They simply mutate.
Hmm.
And that's our experience with coronaviruses. And then secondly,
All viruses mutate.
yes, especially coronaviruses.
Yeah.
And then secondly, as far as the vaccine that's come out, it's experimental. It's never been done before on a wide population. So it remains an experimental vaccine as far as I'm concerned.
Hmm.
Okay. And those both statements are true and accurate. Now, remember, I do not work in the physical realm. I work in the quantum realm. Everything I do is non-physical. So working through your photograph, I can do two things. I can pinpoint a pathogen or a toxin, and then I can instruct that pathogen or toxin to disassemble, break apart, negate, transmute, to be destroyed. Call it what you want, to cure a medical condition. But I only work through your photograph. And the science that I'm working with is not Newtonian physics.
Hmm.
The terms and the language that I use are not Newtonian physics. They have no correlation to Western medicine. So
Hmm.
this is a new branch of science. I'm one of the pioneers of this new branch of science, and it offers such great promise because why? Scalar energy allows us to control molecular and atomic form.
Yeah.
And working with a scalar energy instrument, I can easily break down or negate a virus, including COVID-19.
So have you had any, do you have some examples or some research that you have been doing with this
Sure.
particular one?
Sure. The examples that I can give are to how people respond to the sessions.
Okay.
Now, there is no scientific test for my work except within my clinic, except within my laboratory.
Right.
Because nobody has a scalar energy instrument that can prove my scalar energy results. So I don't look for either approval or disapproval from anybody. I don't look to prove or disprove my work from the scientific community because they don't have a scalar energy instrument. They could not prove or disprove my work because they don't work in this realm of quantum physics, this realm of Christ consciousness. So what am I getting at? The hospital equipment, so to speak, is working in the electromagnetic spectrum. I don't work in the electromagnetic spectrum. So the one way I can prove that I'm doing some benefit to people is by their testimony.
And what are some of these clients saying in the testimony? Like, have you had like some COVID long haulers be your
Yes.
clients? Okay,
Yes.
what have you
Yes.
found in your cases?
Well, over the past 8-9 years, I've amassed probably 3,000 testimonies. They're on my website. And most recently, during this pandemic, people are reporting that their health is good, sound during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, keep in mind, my work cannot be compared to any work in Western science because this is a new branch of physics.
Right.
And I'm not looking for validation from the scientific community because they can't validate my work. So I will speak as to the character of my work during this pandemic. Everybody that I've worked with has reported that they're in good health. Not one person during their scalar energy session died from COVID-19 during my scalar energy sessions. Not one person.
Right. And how many? And so they were going through COVID while they're doing the sessions with you, and
correct.
And how many people did you have?
I would say in the past year, I've worked with at least 50,000 people.
Well, that's a lot of people in a year.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. So, and of course, during 2020, during the coronavirus pandemic, a lot of people were going, here's my picture of my daughter, my son, my whatever.
There is still desperation. The desperation has not abated. Now, the only way I can prove this right now is as to how people feel and their personal testimony, so to speak. There's no scientific group in the world that can either prove or disprove my work because no scientific group has a scalar energy instrument. It's like trying to compare the apple to the orange.
Yeah.
They're two different pieces of fruit. They'll never compare.
Yeah. Energy medicine in the East has always been hard to quantify or to qualify. The only way that they can measure the benefits of energy medicine is the statistical. So like, okay, this statistically, this is how many people came for these groupings. And then statistically, these are how many people all of a sudden got better. What elements contributed to that getting better versus the non-energy medicine group? That's all that they could do is to look at it in base of statistics to quantify and qualify. Okay, what is the effectiveness of this energy medicine modality as compared to this one and this one? But in terms of scientific, like numbers and all that kind of stuff, in terms of like,
you can't.
It's really hard
because you can't measure this energy.
I completely understand it. So those are two really good distinguishers for people to understand, is that there's a before and then there's the after, and that's the only way that you can qualify.
Yes, thank you. I only can prove this by people's testimonies. Again, some people say they were sick before they visited our website. They send in a photograph after we work with their photograph, they feel better. Those are the only statements that I ever make. I allow people to share their test results, their lab reports. I allow them to provide a testimony, but that testimony is specific to them. It's not, it's in no way is it a trial. One of the reasons it's not a trial, you can't have a randomized trial with photographs. Some people say, Tom, why don't you perform a double-blind experiment? You can't perform a double-blind experiment with photographs. You only can do that with people or animals.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. The thing that's interesting about medicine, and I'm not a doctor or anything else. I just interview and look at what the findings are. But the thing I find that's interesting is that in the in the East, in Asia, we have the modern medicine, and we also have energy medicine. It's very common for many people who are of Asian descent or who subscribe to the concept of energy medicine to go see their doctor for something and then also go see their healer or in whatever modality that they prefer. They'll just combine it as and that's very, very common. People are, you have professional doctors who are surgeons, and then they'll also go and see their chiropractor, also go and see their chi healer or whatever. It's very common. Nobody bats an eye. Nobody even questions. They're like, "Oh, that's normal. Who do you have? Oh, that's mine's even better." Everybody, it's almost kind of like a badge of honor. Like, what's how good is your healer? So it's very, very common, and they also go through medical as well. The modern medicine. But in the West, there seems to be a stigma against energy healing. And I tell you, as much as I interview so many different modalities and technologies in energy medicine, that we will come a time, if we haven't already come to a time, where many of our vaccines and our prescription drugs or medications are going to lose their effectiveness. And then you're going to have to combine so many to get the same effectiveness. And then it just gets a little bit too much. So, if you are already there, maybe open yourself up to combining energy healing. So what are your thoughts um
Well
in
stated.
in the West, in the Western mind,
Yeah.
um being open to incorporating energy healing, energy medicine in their traditional adaptation of how they take care of themselves?
It's changing for the better. I've
And
been
what
at this for 40 years. 40 years ago, many people in let's say North America and Europe were closed-minded. Now it's changing. There is a shift. I will say that there are parts of Asia that are years ahead of us because many of the Asian cultures have accepted chi or prana and they embrace that. Now,
Mhm.
you have to keep in mind the United States, many ways, the medical community is dominated by the Rockefellers and Rockefeller money and Rockefeller influence. And
Mhm.
because of that, they work under this umbrella of the medical monopoly. And in so doing, in many ways in North America, our vision of medicine or healthcare is tainted. And it's really just has this narrow focus of the Rockefeller agenda. Anyway, long story short, things are changing. I see a rebirth or a new birth, if you will, in North America and Europe. But I will say that some of the Asian nations are years ahead of us.
Right. It's funny because when I look at patterns, and when I look at the patterns of like the pandemic, for instance, I was also looking at the patterns of the countries that had the lowest mortality rate.
Yeah.
And then I was also looking at like the ones that had the lowest mortality rates, what is their acceptability of energy medicine? And they correlate very much. They correlate. Like Southeast Asia, very, very low. Japan, extremely low. But you ask anybody, they're like, "Oh, I have my healer, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, and I'm doing all the recommended stuff. I also have my energy medicine healers as well because um, it doesn't not there is no evidence that I've come across, and from studying different modalities through Buddhism, there is no evidence that if you apply any form of energy medicine to your wellness, that it's going to affect you negatively. If anything, it's just going to help you positively. So what is the fear of applying it? If it's not
Right.
going to affect you negatively, it might not have any effect on you if you're really
Yeah.
in a dire
Right.
situation. That might be your karma
Yeah.
or your pre-life plan, but what's the loss? So, so you don't have to wait until you are extremely in a dire medical situation to start opening your minds to energy medicine.
Yes.
You can do it even with something very light. So do you have a lot of clients that come to you for just light things like migraines or
Yes.
just kind of
Yes.
feeling kind of off or
Yeah.
anxiety, not
Yeah.
like I have cancer, I have 6 months to live,
Right.
or I'm a long hauler COVID client, just light stuff. You get a lot of that?
Yes, all the time, all the time. Because there are various types of problems, illnesses, spiritual illness, emotional illness, physical illness. Many people simply come to us, we perform a chakra balancing. This energy is so strong, it will balance the 7 chakras in our brain
And
waves.
how does that work? Because not everybody is going to be imbalanced in all the chakras all at once. It
Right,
might just be the lower chakras where they're
right.
imbalanced. It might just be
I'm,
the higher ones.
I'm going to go back to what you noted. What
Okay.
is a chakra? It's a spinning vortex.
Mm-hmm.
What is scalar energy? It's a spinning vortex.
Mm-hmm.
Scalar energy is a double helix. It spins. Our 7 chakras spin because they're scalar energy vortices.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my scalar energy instrument will do what? We'll reprogram our 7 chakras. We'll reprogram our brain waves. Now, this can only be accepted and embraced by those who understand quantum healing or quantum medicine or quantum physics. Call it what you will. Again, these concepts are so foreign to Western medicine.
Explain that
So,
for the Western mind, what quantum anything is. What is
okay.
quantum? Explain that. So,
Well, that's, it begs the definition, and we're going to have to come up with a new dictionary. But let me
yeah.
just explain. Quantum, in the sense of scalar energy, is non-physical reality. And when you're working with quantum energy, scalar energy, it's always non-physical. There's not a proton or an electron in
Mm-hmm.
quantum energy. It's scalar energy.
Mm-hmm.
And again, one is the apple. If scalar energy is the apple, electricity and magnetism is the orange. The two are distinct. So you have to consider that quantum healing, quantum energy, scalar energy, it's non-physical. At least this is the way I define it.
Mm-hmm.
It's divine. It is a different dimension than electricity and magnetism. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm working in a different dimension, a different reality than that of Newtonian physics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's a new textbook. It's a new paradigm that we have to explore. Anyway, long story short, my instrument, everything my instrument incorporates is a non-physical reality. And when I have this instrument tuned up and really, if you will, broadcasting a great deal of scalar energy, it's been shown to rebalance the brain waves, which are
Mm-hmm.
what? Non-physical scalar waves.
Mm-hmm.
It's been able to realign the 7 meridians or the 7 chakras, which are what? Composed of non-physical scalar energy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not electromagnetic. We're not using electrical shock. It's a scalar energy, benign energy. It's the life force energy, and it redirects, it reprograms the mind and the 7 chakras. Entirely different than that of electricity.
Right, right. Let me give you my understanding of this energy field, and then this healing energy field. For some people have discussed it as, and see if there's a correlation. So in Buddhism, for the advanced Buddhists who know this and have experienced this, everything is energy waves vibrating at a different frequency to create the form in which you are engaging with.
Yes.
So Vaughn here has a particular energy frequency, as Tom Paladino has a particular energy frequency that is unique to him. There's only one fingerprint in the world. There's only one energy signature for him. So anyways, and there's a different energy field for the house I'm in, the books that is behind me, etc., whatever. So everything in physical form has its own unique energy signature. And if you get to a level of consciousness where you break through that illusionary veil of form, you will see, just like in the scene of the Matrix, you will see the energy field of everything. Now,
Yeah.
when you get to that non-physical dimension of seeing the fields of energy, that
Yes.
everything is really just energy playing its own unique signature or song in the symphony, then if something is out of balance, you just tap into that consciousness that is connected to all, and that consciousness will come through and realign that energy field. So they'll do the work in that level. And then when you snap back into the physical form and snap back into the physical dimension of the matrix of reality, that scoliosis or that bent, slightly off kilter spine that you have has recalibrated itself, or the chakras that are out of balance that is causing some kind of illness in Eastern medicine. Most of your illnesses are held in your chakras. But once you align that in that field and you come back into this dimension, it has been recalibrated, has been balanced out. And so then you see in your body, that your body has physically changed to a much healthier state. Getting a little bit esoteric there, but that's how I understand scalar energy.
Brilliant, brilliant. Scalar energy are the instructions of the universe. Before you build a physical universe, you need instructions. I'm going to give you an analogy.
Mhm.
What architect, what contractor does not start first with architectural plans?
Mhm.
You just don't show up on a construction site and start swinging nails and pouring concrete. You have plans, you have intelligence. So the architectural plans are first have to be drawn up and decided upon.
Mhm.
Those are the instructions for a house or a factory. After you have the blueprints, the instructions, that's scalar energy, then you build the physical edifice, which are what? Electrons, protons, or in this case, 2x4s in concrete.
Mhm.
So the intelligence is scalar energy that precedes the physical universe of electrons, protons, elements, atoms.
Yeah, I love that. Good. We're on the same page. All right, so we're talking about the same thing. You know, sometimes when I explain these very metaphysical terms in Buddhism and Eastern philosophies, I lose some of my guests, but I guess you're familiar, so
Yeah, no,
we're on.
what you're saying is brilliant and right on. And
Okay.
this is the beauty of scalar energy. This is what Tesla realized. Tesla's instruments controlled the instructions of the universe. They
Mhm.
controlled nature.
Yeah.
My instruments control the instructions of the universe. I can control nature. When you're in the wheelhouse, so to speak, and you control, you're at the dashboard, so to speak, of the universe,
Mhm.
and you can control information, then you control the universe.
Yeah. Yeah. Or as a Buddhist who understands that we manifest within the matrix, you have dominion over physical form.
Yes. You can go back to the book of Genesis when God said, I give you dominion over nature. Why? Adam and Eve had this scalar energy presence.
Hmm.
They had dominion over nature.
Yeah.
My instrument allows me to have dominion over nature.
And what is the definition of dominion? It is the ability to reshape form based
Yes.
off of your consciousness.
Yes. Yes. You
Uh,
don't need you don't need a chimney, you don't need transistors. It's consciousness, it's instruction. So instead of saying consciousness, we could say instructions
yeah.
or information system.
Yeah. The neural pathway, the neural pathway of your psyche.
Yes.
Yes, the information, or your soul is another people like to understand. Like your spirit, your soul.
Yes.
That's the energy that's commanding what you're going to experience, what you're going to develop. But let me ask you this. When it comes to control. All right. So I try to give people, especially with the people that I interview, something that they can control in their life, because we have our own individual consciousness that we can manifest from within, and we can create our reality from. And then we play into a collective consciousness, a greater consciousness that we all add a little piece of our vote into the next best experience that is created. So there's some things that are out of our control. So when it comes to our health, our personal health, we have control over that. So how can people in times when they're getting so much different information, and they feel like they're pulled from a lot of different information and they don't know what's real, what's not real, how can they connect to that Christ consciousness that fuel scalar energy so that they can tune into that highest frequency, into the healthiest version of themselves that they can control.
Prayer is scalar energy. Every time you pray, you're broadcasting, you're emitting scalar energy. And what is prayer? It's communication to God. God communicates to us, we communicate to God. So I tell people, even though I have a scalar energy instrument, you have something much more powerful than my laboratory instrument. It's your prayer with God. So if you need advice, go to God. That's the greatest source there is. That's the divine source. So I always try and tell people, be of good cheer, do the best you can. Nobody's perfect. Pray, discern, ask God for wisdom, ask God for guidance. I realized that last year was a tough year. That pandemic was wicked. It was evil. But
it was an exercise in it revealed a lot of things for a lot of people. I will say that. And it was definitely a learning lesson.
It was a tough lesson. It was a tough lesson. But, I think we're over the hump, so to speak. And what's to be learned? Many people became closer to God. They became more spiritual. And their priorities have shifted. And for many people, that's good. Their priorities did need to shift and change.
Yeah. I always like to when I look at challenges in life, whether it's something out of our control, or whether it's something within our control, like who we choose to love, for example, or who we choose to where we choose to live, like which house we want to buy, etc. So whether it's in our control or out of control, I always try to see, okay, this is, if it's a challenge, it's a life lesson. So what is the life lesson? What is it that I can get out of this to learn and grow? And because obviously it's happening for a reason. And the Eastern mystics will say it's part of your pre-life plan. So whatever you're scared of, it was already baked out prior to this incarnation. But it's a little scary when you don't know when you're going to cocoon and when you're going to butterfly. But it's trust. So here's the thing: how can people trust Christ consciousness? How can they trust the spirit of the universe that is at play in everybody? Because it's really hard to trust right now for some people.
I know it is. Well, I think if you really are able to discern and to listen to the voice of God, then you can always trust in God. Pray, be of good moral character, do the best you can. As I've said, I pray all the time. I ask for God for guidance all the time. I cannot do this alone. A lot of my friends and people who admire my work, I said, well, thank you for the admiration, but without God, none of this would have been possible. So I give God the first credit.
Yeah. We're just playing different parts, for consciousness. It's when you're looking at a sheet of music and you play a little part of it. Let's say you pick the really stormy part of the music, it's going to be a little bit scary. But when you see the whole symphony and you listen to the whole song from beginning to end, it's a beautiful masterpiece. So there's always highs and lows. So you have a lot of programs on your website. What is the most popular program for people to do?
It remains our standardized session, which are 3 modalities. It's always through a photograph: the chakra balancing, the germ cleanse, the microbe cleanse, and we have a nutrient program. So we can work with people by way of their photograph, and those 3 sessions are performed. Again, it's all done by way of a scalar energy instrument.
Okay. Well, speaking of instruments, if a young inventor were to watch this and go, I want to try to recreate a small version of Nikola Tesla's scalar towers in my neighborhood, where can I learn more about this?
There's a great notebook, Tesla's 1899 notebook, his notebook from Colorado Springs and his experimentation. Read that notebook. And if you understand it and you are able to put it into motion, so to speak, you'll be able to recreate Tesla's work.
Yeah. And do that prayer and meditation for Source, and Source will, if it is part of your pre-life plan, they will guide you through synchronicity so that you get a little piece, a little piece, a little piece. Yeah. I love that part too, because it's almost like you are following it's almost like you're playing a Monopoly game where you're like, oh, I got to gather this, I got to gather that. And before
It,
you know, you have enough that you're like, oh, now I have all the pieces. Now I'm going to put it together.
in many ways, it was cumulative. And over the years, I accumulated this knowledge, and here I am today. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I write my books. That's how I write my books. The synchronicity
Yes.
with spirit. That's the only way to do it. But yeah, but for people who get into this line of work of for this line of work,
Fascinating. It's fascinating.
it is
It's fascinating.
fascinating.
There's one drawback, and I don't mean to
Yes,
be I don't
yes,
mean to be negative. There's no money in this because it's a new science. So if you really enjoy science, you really enjoy the hunt, great. This is for you. But don't expect to be compensated because we're years away from we're a good ways away from a functioning industry where you can sustain yourself and make a viable living. There's no
yeah,
money in it. There's no money in this.
yeah. A
You
lot of
don't
energy.
you need a part-time job. Sorry.
True. I have my day job too.
Yeah.
A lot of energy medicine practitioners and technologists, they also have their day jobs too. So, but you know what? The time is coming. The more that we all do this and offer this, because I think the time is coming very, very quickly where energy medicine is going to be a viable industry that people are going to be looking for in the West and around the world. Because like we were discussing earlier, and people can look this up, vaccines and medications are wonderful. And actually, the man who created the first vaccine, he actually had his awakening, and he had his awakening, his spiritual awakening. He actually had this image in his dream of a snake catching its own tail. And that's that was his in his dream when he had a spiritual awakening, and he even talks about this, and he and that's what how he got the idea of the vaccine. So it has an interesting history, but the other aspect of that is that as the diseases get more sophisticated and mutate so much faster, they're not always going to be as effective. And so if you're in that batch where the medicine that you're taking is not as effective, be open to energy medicine. So the East is open to it very, very, very well. And I think this is going to be something that grows very quickly. So now, Tom, you actually have a nonprofit relief in Uganda and
Yes.
India. I
Very
know
good.
yeah, I know India is going through a lot right now with COVID. So tell us about these projects. Are they still ongoing?
Well, I'm going to hold this up. People will send me collages like this. Okay. Collages from villages in Africa and India, etc., around the world. And we work with people for free. We treat, their photograph free of charge. So the key here is to heal the world. Now, I wish that this would really take off and people would embrace this. I'm willing to treat 7.9 billion people free of charge by way of their photograph. But this is still so esoteric and it's poorly understood. To date, we've probably treated around the world probably at least 100 million, 200 million people, but certainly not 7.9 billion people. I want to provide healing for the world.
Yeah.
And thank you for drawing reference to that. We do most of our work is pro bono around the world. You're right. Throughout Latin America, Africa, India, Asia, we're working with millions of people around the world by way of their photograph and attending to their quantum health in so doing.
Mm-hmm. And will you still like, let's say, a village sends you the picture of their village, will you still be doing that?
If they ask, yeah, sure.
Oh,
Today I
you're gonna
work
get
with,
some pictures.
oh yeah, today I work with at least 20,000 people from India, at least.
And
At least.
what was are they still ongoing, or what was the result of that?
They're
When you
healthy. They're
they're healthy,
healthy.
yeah, they're
Their
healthy,
health is thriving.
yeah.
According to the reports to me, their health is thriving. It's so satisfying. We have volunteers around the world taking photographs, thousands of photographs of people around the world. And remember, it's not one photograph at a time. You can photograph a family, or you can photograph an entire village. Anyway, long story short, we've been able to eradicate cholera in villages, HIV in villages, eradicate tuberculosis in villages.
And are you getting the clients' testimonials that their cholera or their
Yes,
HIV in their villages are gone?
Correct.
Really
So people
interesting.
yes, indeed. So people are providing their testimony to us, and God bless them for doing so. They're very forward with us. They feel comfortable in releasing their testimony. It's always anonymous, but people have to speak up, and they have the right to free expression. So, their testimony is precisely that, how they feel in their testimony.
Let me ask you something. Have you had a hospital send you pictures of all their clients?
No,
all the patients?
Because no hospital in the United States is comfortable with our work.
Well, what about in India or in other
yes,
places?
In India, yes. I'm working with an HIV AIDS clinic in Delhi, India, and it's our work is embraced in Delhi, India. But in the United States, there's too much of a monopoly, and there's too many lawsuits, and there's too much misunderstanding. So, if somebody's not comfortable, I don't force it.
Yeah. I understand that when it's funny because I find this very interesting because I do some energy healing and I ask people if they're they post on their Facebook a dire situation. I email them, hey, would you be open to da 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 da? And you would think, considering the situation, that they will be open to it, especially if it's distance healing.
Sure.
And I get a no.
Yeah, a lot of people, because
So
they don't understand, and we have to respect their opinion.
and you respect their life choice. It's like, okay, no problem. But it would be like not saying that I'm Edgar Casey or anything, but it would be like Edgar Casey going, hey, I'm going to send you some energy healing through the wires. Do you want it? You're kind of in like your deathbed. And they go, no, because they're scared of it. So even in their deathbed, they are scared of energy medicine. So
it goes back to what I shared with you previously. Some of the Asian cultures, people in Japan, Korea, even in Australia, they grew up with energy medicine. They grew up with quantum healing. Call it what you will, and they're much more open to this. Sure.
Yeah. They don't necessarily, especially the ones who understand that consciousness is in everybody. They don't necessarily demonize people. Now, they might not like the way people are acting or treating their village or treating the people. They may not like that person, but they don't demonize them as being separate from them, as not having consciousness within them. They're just like, oh, you obviously are trying not to recognize source within you.
Sure.
So, which is a completely different thing.
I'm accepted throughout the world, and that acceptance is really very prevalent throughout Asia. Once again, the United States is coming on board, but I am going to make a prediction, and this is one of the predictions that Jesus gave me, that Japan will embrace this work because they grew up with this. And they're familiar with this. This is their culture. So mark my words, Japan someday will embrace this quantum healing.
Yeah, and Japan has quite a bit of networks in a lot of industries, and so it's kind of like a hub that opens up into other industries as well, which will be really exciting. A lot. So I don't know. I have friends in Asia, and we kind of talk with, like, for instance, when the pandemic was happening, I already knew what was happening in Italy because my illustrator is from Italy, right exactly at the hub, which is really ironic because I am from Seattle, Washington. I live in a town called Everett, and it is a city in which the quote first COVID-19 patient or person that was diagnosed came from. And which is really kind of funny, but he was fine. Everything is fine. It's not as dire as people think it is. But in India, I have a lot of people that I work with marketing who work in India, and they're telling me what's going on as it's happening. So a lot of the people I work with are in different parts of the world. And so when something comes up, I ask, and then I get the information, and then I have to sit with it because not everybody's ready for information yet. They have to process in their own way. It's part of their life lesson. So that's the hardest thing too. Is like, you're already there, but they're not ready to go there yet. It's almost like
Yeah,
white noise.
yeah.
You could be
You know
talking
what I'm
Scarlet.
going through.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
know what you're going
this
to
is
do.
this is what Tesla faced 100 years ago. He demonstrated these incredible inventions. People had not the slightest idea what he was showing them. They
Yeah,
still don't.
and even if he showed them the results, and this is the thing, the consciousness of the society, he was so pioneering. The consciousness of the society during Tesla's time was not ready for infinite source consciousness within their in their life, but the consciousness in our society now will eventually get there,
Yeah.
but they're still so scared about their own shadow.
Yes, they are. It's a shame. It's like, they think that this is inimical, and they believe this is going to do them harm. Well, it better not, because it's sunlight, it's starlight. And if scalar energy is going to hurt you, then all of the sun and our stars are really going to hurt you, right? Well,
Yeah,
there's no
yeah.
that's not reasonable.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes for myself, I have to be respectful and try not to laugh so much, because there's no harm. There have not been any evidence that energy medicine does harm. If anything, it benefits. Well, Tom, this has been fun. What is your last message or suggestions for people
Uh,
wanting to build the fifth dimension society with scalar energy?
you know, try it out. We have a free session on our website. Anybody can visit the website. We offer 15 days of free sessions to anybody in the world. The website is scalarlight.com, scalarlight.com. If it's the first time you've ever tried energy medicine, energy healing, try it. It's
Yeah.
painless, it's easy. You only send in a photograph. This has nothing to do with Western medicine. So send us your photograph and we'll work with you for 15 days. And invariably, the greater majority of people feel better.
Did you hear that, guys? So scalar, SCALAR light.com. Send your photographs. If you're going through, if you're kind of nervous, if you are kind of nervous about a family member going through COVID right now or any other illness, send that picture over. If you're in a village in India, actually, this podcast is listened to a lot of people in India, and you have a village picture, send that over
Yes.
for the trial. If you are if there's anybody that's sick in your life, send that over. Also, I would also say some people are getting the vaccine right now for COVID, some people are not. No problem. I don't have an opinion. It's in your life chart. But if you decide to take it and you have some hesitancy, send your picture in too.
Why not?
Why
Exactly.
not? And if you're just kind of curious to see how much more you can amplify your consciousness, if you have nothing going on, send that in too. So it's a lot of fun. I try so many different energy healings and just kind of let me see, and I always am so delighted in how prana or chi or source energy has found so many different ways to do energy healing and energy medicine from people. Um, well, Tom, thank you for offering Scalar Light to the public. For your free energy inventors out there, Nikola Tesla and Tom Palatino have shown it can be harnessed for various uses. So crowdfund and start creating your 5D inventions. And what's the name of that Tesla book, Tom, again?
It's the Colorado Springs Notes, 1899. You'll find it. Various bookstores have it.
Awesome. And thank you kindly to our listeners for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, blessings.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the fifth dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.